The Road Home. Chapter 1. The Journey Begins. Lena stood at the edge of the village, her heart heavy with the weight of the decision she had made. The dusty road stretched out before her, winding through the hills and disappearing into the forest beyond. It had been years since she had last seen her hometown, a place that held both fond memories and deep scars. But now, with her parents gone and the farm left to her, the call to return was stronger than ever. She adjusted the straps of her worn backpack, taking one last look at the small town that had become her home over the past decade. The bustling streets, the friendly faces, these were the things she would miss. But the yearning to reconnect with her roots, to find herself in the place where her life had begun, was something she could no longer ignore. With a deep breath, Lena took her first step down the road. The journey ahead was long, but she was determined to face whatever challenges lay in her path. As she walked, the memories of her childhood began to flood her mind, and she wondered what awaited her at the end of the road. Chapter 2. A Familiar Face. The sun was high in the sky when Lena reached the outskirts of the forest. The trees were tall and ancient, their branches forming a thick canopy overhead. She remembered playing in these woods as a child, chasing after her brothers, and climbing the old oak tree near the stream. Those were the days of innocence, before life had taken her in unexpected directions. As she made her way through the forest, Lena heard the sound of footsteps behind her. She turned, her heart racing, but relaxed when she saw a familiar figure emerging from the shadows. "Ben," she called out, her voice tinged with disbelief. "Lena, is that really you?" The man stepped into the light, revealing a broad smile and warm eyes that sparkled with recognition. Ben had been her closest friend growing up, the boy who lived on the farm next to hers. They had shared countless adventures together, from exploring the woods to getting into mischief in the village. But as they grew older, life had taken them down different paths, and they had lost touch. "I can't believe it's you," Lena said, rushing forward to embrace him. "I was just coming back from the market when I saw someone on the road," Ben replied, returning the hug. "I never imagined it would be you. What brings you back after all these years?" Lena hesitated for a moment, then sighed. "I felt it was time. My parents, they passed away recently, and I inherited the farm. I guess I needed to come back to figure out what's next." Ben nodded, his expression turning serious. "I'm sorry to hear about your parents. They were good people." "Thanks," Lena said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't really know what I'm going to do, but I felt like I had to come home." "Well, you're not alone," Ben said, giving her a reassuring smile. "The village has changed, but some things remain the same. I'll help you however I can." Chapter 3. The Ghosts of the Past. As they walked together through the forest, Lena and Ben talked about the years that had passed since they last saw each other. Ben had taken over his family's farm after his father passed away, and although it was hard work, he was content. He had married a few years ago, and his wife, Sarah, was expecting their first child. Lena listened with a mix of happiness and melancholy. It was comforting to know that Ben had found stability, but it also highlighted the uncertainty in her own life. She had spent so many years drifting, unsure of what she wanted or where she belonged. Now, standing on the precipice of a new chapter, she felt both excitement and fear. When they finally reached the clearing near the old oak tree, Lena paused. The tree had grown even taller, its branches spreading wide to provide shade over the small stream that babbled nearby. It was exactly as she remembered, yet different in a way she couldn't quite put into words. "Do you remember the time we built that treehouse up there?" Ben asked, pointing to a spot high in the branches. Lena laughed. "Of course. We thought it was the most amazing thing ever, even though it was just a few planks of wood nailed together. We spent hours up there pretending we were pirates or explorers," Ben said, his voice filled with nostalgia. Those memories brought a smile to Lena's face, but they also stirred something deeper, an unresolved sadness that she had buried long ago. She had left this place not just to find a better life, but to escape the pain of losing her younger brother, Toby. He had drowned in the very stream that now flowed peacefully beside them. Lena had blamed herself for his death, and the grief had driven her away from home. Ben seemed to sense her shift in mood. Lena, I know you carry a lot from the past, but coming back doesn't have to mean reliving the pain. It can be about healing, too. Lena nodded, though the tears in her eyes betrayed the inner turmoil she felt. I want to believe that, Ben. I really do. Chapter 4. The Village of Yesterday. The village came into view as they emerged from the forest. It was smaller than Lena remembered, but still charming in its own way. The houses were nestled close together, their thatched roofs and stone walls giving the place a timeless quality. A few villagers were out and about, tending to their chores or chatting with neighbors. As they walked down the main street, Lena noticed that many of the shops and homes had been passed down to the next generation. The baker's son now ran the bakery, and the blacksmith's daughter was hard at work in the forge. It was clear that, while some things had changed, the village had managed to hold on to its traditions. Do you recognize anyone? Ben asked as they passed by the old general store. Some faces are familiar, Lena replied, but it's strange. It's like looking at a picture that was taken years ago and trying to remember all the details. Ben smiled. You'll get used to it. The village has a way of making you feel at home, even after all this time. They stopped in front of the farm that had once been Lena's home. The house was in need of repair, the paint peeling and the windows cracked. The fields were overgrown with weeds, and the barn looked like it hadn't been used in years. But despite its condition, Lena felt a pang of affection for the place. This was where she had grown up, where she had learned to love and to grieve. I guess this is it, Lena said, her voice wavering. Ben placed a hand on her shoulder. It's still your home, Lena, and you can bring it back to life. Lena nodded, taking a deep breath. I want to try. I think it's time. Chapter 5. Rebuilding and Renewal. The days that followed were filled with hard work and determination. Lena threw herself into repairing the house, clearing the fields, and restoring the barn. Ben was true to his word and helped her whenever he could, often bringing along Sarah, who quickly became a close friend. Together, they managed to breathe new life into the farm. As Lena worked, she found that the physical labor was not just about fixing the farm, but also about mending her own heart. With each nail she hammered and each weed she pulled, she felt a little more at peace with the past. The memories of her brother were still painful, but they no longer haunted her the way they once had. Instead, she began to cherish the happy times they had shared, allowing those memories to bring her comfort rather than sorrow.